guys, some stupid sketch show guy here with another prehistoric figure review, and today's prehistoric figure review is going to be on a very exciting and highly anticipated new release, the Beast of the Mesozoic Ceratopsian series, Zuniceratops. So let's get into it. So first up, as always, we've got the paint job, which is based off the Great Plains skink, as shown with its orange frill, brown overall body, and blue tail. And it's applied pretty well, but it's not perfect. My favorite parts do have to go to the frill though. The frill is incredibly nice, very bright orange, with nice blue outlines as well. It is by far the most glimmering section of this figure. However, the face also has some pretty bad parts, such as the white stuff on here, or yellow stuff, or whatever they're trying to go with. It just looks bad. It just looks like someone smothered a deviled egg over the white stripes, and I don't really like it. But the face still has other great parts of it that are painted to perfection, such as the beak and the horns that look like something you'd see in a hunter's house. As you move to the rest of the body, it is also decently well applied, with some nice, subtle blue stripes, some brown overall on the body, and some not so greatly applied brown on the legs, which, while it is intended for the legs to have a tan bit on them, it looks more like the brown paint just got worn out and degraded over time, and this is the result. It looks damaged without it even being damaged. And lastly, of course, is the tail, which, while it does look a bit out of place, still looks nice, with some great black striping, as well as some very good tonal changes in color from light blue at the top to dark blue at the end of the tail, which adds up to a 7.5 out of 10 on paint job. Next up is posability, which is a little disappointing for this figure, as you can't really do any posability with its legs. There isn't much you can do because the figure depends on all 4 of its legs to stand. So if you tried doing this sort of running pose, then you'd have it kind of lean to the side like this, and it would just look stupid. So you can't really use its legs to make poses. Instead, you have to use its head, which is still good, but it's still rather limiting. You can make it look towards you, you can make it look away from you, you can make it look up, you can make it look down. Besides that, it's just how you frame the figure with your camera. So for posability, I would give it a 6.5 out of 10. Next up is articulation, which is a bit of a mixed bag. The worst part of the articulation is by far the legs, as I misperceived this and this to be knee joints, but all they really do is just you can twist them and move them a bit. Like, yeah, it's kinda cool, but it's not really that useful. The foot and leg joints are kinda just there as small little things. The real thing that most people want is, of course, the full leg articulation, which you can inadvertently get if you try moving this guy or this guy with a little too much force. But overall, I do find the swivels around here and here to be not really super useful, but a subtle enough touch. They also articulate quite roughly, taking a lot of effort to really move, being kinda stiff and not really smooth and satisfying to move around. However, I will say it is smooth and satisfying to move around the tail, which, while a pain in the butt to get in because it is a ball joint, is really worth it, as it is very nice to move around. Same applies for the neck and head, as that is also really nice. It is oddly satisfying to make this thing look up, look down, look to the left, and look to the right. It just feels so seamless. I really like it. The only part of the head articulation that I'm not a huge fan of is the jaw, which is kinda useless. Like, this is about as far as it can open, and as you can see, the whole gum line kind of protrudes. So as far as you can really go is about this. This is about as far as you can open the jaw without it looking stupid, and here is how far you can close the mouth. Almost nothing. So the articulated jaw is useless, and I'm kind of disappointed. I like articulated jaws a lot on any dinosaur, so when the articulated jaw turns out to be kind of useless, I'm just like, well, why was it even there in the first place? But that one gripe aside, I think the articulation can be very smooth, satisfying, and sometimes stiff, depending on which area you're moving. And for that, I give the articulation a 7.5 out of 10. And lastly, we've got the detail. And the detail, compared to all the other parts of this figure, is the most consistent. There aren't any major downgrades when it comes to this section of the figure. As all the other ones had bits that I could criticize on, this one really doesn't, because the detail is ultra consistent. There isn't a single piece of this figure that is not covered in scales, with obvious exceptions, but the skin is completely scaly, and there's not a single scale missing all over this body. It is truly beautiful and glorious, and it even feels almost reptilian. It's very nice to feel, and it's very beautiful to look at. It is very well detailed. Not a single place without scales, except, well, the eye, which is done pretty well, the horns, which are painted with incredible realism and look really good, and of course the mouth, which is probably the weakest part of this figure when it comes to detail. It looks alright, with some nice gloss in there, but compared to this and all the other scales, it just doesn't look as good. And that's just because the rest of this figure's detail just looks way better in comparison. And I think that is a good summary of the detail. It's very nice, ultra consistent, and for that, I would give it a 8.5 out of 10. So now time for my final thoughts. The paint job is well applied in most areas, but in others it can look a little off. The posability is far from diverse, but is also far from bad. The articulation can be stiff in the leg area, but in other areas it is very fun to move around, and the details have not missed a beat. So, for my final rating, I give the Beast of the Mesozoic, Zuniceratops, a 7.5 out of 10. So, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment down what you think of the Zuniceratops and the rest of the Beast of the Mesozoic line, and also talk in the comments about what I should review next. See you guys next time.